really do want me back. They're trying to woo me. Thank you.
Girl, for the last time, this is Peacock.
Huh? Keep it coming.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Season 3, Episodes 1 through 3. But before we get started, let me quickly say, Giselle trying my patience is nothing new. You guys know how I feel about her. But on this trip, she is truly insufferable because, girl, why are you trying so hard to create drama? Just let it flow naturally. Her constantly going back and forth, telling what people said about each other. Oh, by the way, Heather, this was said about you. Oh, by the way, Leah, Heather said that about you. And then with her constantly telling Marisol and Alexia to stop speaking Spanish, she's out of order for that. Who are you to tell them anything? You really have the audacity. And it's like, Giselle, please calm down. You are not on your franchise. But overall, I really am liking this season. I just want Giselle to stop trying so hard. It's clear that she truly is the producer on Potomac because the way she is hell-bent on starting drama every second of the day, it's annoying. It's a big turnoff. You have 8 women in a house from different shows. Drama is going to naturally happen. But with all that being said, let's just jump right on into it because you guys already know that we don't have a minute to spare. So my first thoughts for episode 1. It's clear that Bravo, Peacock, NBC Universal want Portia back on the show in some capacity. Because we see Portia started off, she's pretty much like the narrator in the first episode, and she's pretty much saying that since she's had some time away to reflect and be off camera, she's not in the thick of all the mess going on, and it feels really good to just sit back and observe the ladies. Now, Portia, we already know your tea, okay? We've already pulled your card, sis. You don't want to come back on the show because you don't want to talk about how you really got with Simon, and we're going to talk about that in episode 2 because, girl, for you to be so upset with Candiace over that game, as shady as you are, you tried it. Now, we see a short scene with all the ladies FaceTiming each other before the trip, and I have to admit, it is a bit jarring seeing scenes with Candiace and Giselle talking to each other and actually laughing, because mind you, they went on this trip 2 weeks after Potomac wrapped. So all that stuff went down, and Candiace even says in her confessional that she is still hurt by Giselle's actions towards her husband. Now, I thought it was funny when Marisol and Alexia were talking, and Marisol said, we're the OGs in this group, so we deserve the best rooms in the house. And I said, Marisol, please pipe down, because you got demoted to friend of the show. Be happy that Peacock even invited you to do this, if I'm being honest. And while you guys might be the OGs, you guys were on hiatus for 8 years, and don't get it twisted, season 5 of Miami was your best season yet, and that's because of all the drama with Lisa and her divorce. And the drama between Alexia and Adriana and you, I will give you props for that, but again, sis, don't get it twisted. Your franchise just became that girl this season. So we see all the ladies on different flights. I think Marisol, Leah, and Portia were on the same flight together. Giselle was flying solo. She had a layover in Abu Dhabi, and then from Abu Dhabi, she flew into Thailand. So we see all the ladies arrive in Thailand. Whitney got to the villa first, but the catch was she was dropped off on some hill and she was getting lost, so she walked for about an hour or 2 before she finally got to the villa. So we see Giselle arrive to the house, and when I tell you that the house is absolutely stunning. It's 29,000 square feet, the infinity pool, it overlooks the sea, they have a theater, I mean, stunning. And the newest star of the show is Pepsi, who's their concierge. When I tell you I love Pepsi, he is so sweet. He said that he learned English watching movies. I love how he's so much fun. He's really witty, sharp, just quick on his feet. And he really has a cute banter with the ladies. And you could tell that Pepsi's loving the spotlight because Pepsi has his own confessionals. I said, I know that's right, Pepsi. You better get your 15 minutes of fame too. So one by one, all the ladies arrive. Alexia arrives. She and Giselle are talking. I think Alexia says that she only knows Giselle and Marisol. So she is excited to meet the other women. Giselle also admits that she hasn't met a lot of the ladies either. She says that she's dying to get to know the SLC girls, especially Whitney. So as they're talking, Candiace arrives. Giselle's like, look, we had a very rocky season, but me and Candiace are not going to carry that mess into the house. And I said, but Giselle, let's be real for a minute, right? You accused her husband of making you feel uncomfortable on national TV. I don't understand how you could feel like you and Candiace can just put that to the side. Those are very big accusations that could mess up somebody's life forever. So for you to act like, yeah, well, we had a rocky season, but we're getting past that. We're not going to talk about that. We just wrapped it up in a nice bow. Absolutely not. You sound crazy and delusional. And personally, if I were Candiace, I wouldn't speak to you this entire trip. Now, when Whitney finally got to the villa, I have to check you right here, Whitney, because you already pissed me off on SLC, but you really tried it when you said you're most nervous to meet Candiace, because you said in an interview that she's the most annoying housewife out of all the franchises. I said, excuse me? How is Candiace the most annoying housewife when that's actually you? All you do is run your mouth, lie, and spread everybody's business, but yet you want to say that Candiace is the most annoying out of all the housewives. I was just so irritated. To all my subscribers who don't watch SOC, you're not missing out on much, so don't feel bad if you don't watch their franchise, because they are a bit boring. And this last season was abysmal. But if you want to check out my recaps, feel free, go ahead. But on their franchise, all Whitney does is lie, twist up people's words, and play the victim. Now Heather arrives, and she greets Whitney. Remember, if you watch SLC, that Whitney and Heather are cousins and best friends, and they ended this season on a really bad note. So Heather says, look, our season was rough, but there's nothing that a girl's trip can't cure, and she hopes that they can repair the relationship because she misses Whitney. So the minute Heather sits down, right, Giselle right out the gate starts grilling Heather about Jen Shah. And I said, Giselle, this woman came off of this long flight like you guys all did. She's probably tired. Can she at least get a drink, a glass of water, something before you grill her? Giselle just can't help herself. So Heather says, look, I am processing this whole thing like everybody else. I'm shocked just like you guys. And here goes Giselle. So you knew she was lying? Did you really believe that she was innocent? I said, Giselle, can you at least wait a few hours before you interrogate her? And once again, Giselle tries way too hard to get the drama rolling. Like, just relax, just calm down. So you have Whitney jumping in, saying that Jen is a master manipulator. And now Heather says, look, all in all, I still love Jen. It is what it is. So here goes Giselle. You still love her after she lied to you? How is that, Heather? And Heather, I have to admit, you do sound a bit crazy when you say things like that. Because, like I said in my SLC recaps, I don't understand how you have so much grace for somebody who not only lied to you for 18 months about what they did, but the fact that Jen has treated you so poorly throughout the years. She's cursed at you, made fun of your appearance. She has said so much behind your back, and yet you still want to be this ride or die for her. It doesn't make sense. And one thing that drives me nuts about Heather is the fact that she is such a people pleaser. She just wants everybody's validation and approval of her. It's sick to watch. So now Marisol, Leah, and Portia finally arrive. Everybody's there. And was it just me, or did it seem like Candiace and Portia kind of avoided each other? Because I didn't see them hug. So we see Leah and Heather greet each other, and Leah brings up Jen Shah, and she says, by the way, Heather, that woman is a narcissist, and you were manipulated by her. So Heather's offended. She's like, well, thanks, we're just meeting each other, and that's the first thing that you say to me? Really? So Heather says, yeah, I guess that's the case. Honestly, my best relationships have been with the narcissist, the best sex, the best friendships. And I said, Heather, that's nothing to brag about. You need to get some self-esteem. Because the fact that you allow people to walk all over you like that and treat you like nothing is sad. Now we see Pepsi interrupt them. He's like, okay, girls, it's time to go outside to go to the spirit house. And the spirit house is outside by the pool. And it's this altar with flowers and you give the spirits food, and you set an intention while you're there. So Portia says that she wants there to be a sisterhood. Candiace says that she wants to keep her edges. Of course, Giselle is so predictable. She says that she wants to have fun, but she also wants to get down to the drama. I said, of course you do. And Giselle, aren't you tired to be searching for drama at your big age at every single turn? It doesn't get a bit old? I understand that, yes, you are on a show. It's supposed to be entertaining, but it's not entertaining when you guys are always at each other's throats 24/7. The audience does enjoy some light, airy, fun moments. So while they're setting their intentions at the Spirit House, Alexia and Marisol are talking to each other in Spanish, and Giselle, I guess, assumes that they're talking about the group. And Giselle's like, no speaking any of that Spanish here. Like, I want to know what you're saying. Speak English. And I was like, Giselle, how dare you? And you guys know how I feel about Alexia and Marisol. I can't stand either one of them. But Giselle, you are out of line for that. A quick side note. You know who I want to see on the next girls' trip? Heather Dubrow and Shannon Bedore from OC. That would be a good trip. Now, let me tell you something. When it was time for them to look at their rooms, Portia got the best room. Her room was absolutely stunning. And even she said, oh, Bravo wants your girl back. And the producer said, girl, this is Peacock. But listen, Bravo, Peacock, is all under NBC, so pretty much the same thing. Marisol and Alexia had a gorgeous room as well. Candiace had a pretty room. The housewife who got the worst room in the house was Leah. And Leah was complaining about it. She was like, Pepsi, do you hate me? Why'd you give me the worst room? And no offense, Leah, but my girl, you were only on for 3 seasons of New York. And let's face it, sis, but you really weren't that girl. You joined the show when it was on its decline. And also, Leah, you were pretty much the equivalent to Gina on OC. And if you watch OC, then you know that Gina should not be on the show. Gina does not meet the requirements of being a real housewife. And neither did Leah, in my opinion. So I feel like Leah should be happy that she's even on Ultimate Girls Trip. So for her to complain about whatever room she got, I'm like, baby, again, be happy that you're there. You're getting a nice check, a free 5-star vacation, and some camera time because we don't know when we'll see you again. And Leah walking around the house complaining to everybody who would listen about, I have the worst room. Why did Pepsi give me the worst room? Nobody wants to hear that. Unpack your bag, sis. Put a smile on your face and have a good time. Nobody came a million miles across the world to hear you whine and complain and carry on about having the worst room. Nobody cares. Let me break out the world's tiniest violin for you. So as they're all settling in their rooms, we see Giselle and Portia talking. Remember that Giselle and Portia have a friendship because they both did that Bravo chat room show together. So, of course, they're talking about all the ladies. Here goes Portia. Now, I don't know why everybody on Twitter is saying that me and Candiace are about to fight each other. Why would they say that? Because usually I know when I'm about to go off on somebody. I said, Portia, we all know that you're unhinged. The way you showed your ass on your spinoff show, that was a complete flop. You were on national TV and tried to hit your baby daddy's mother. So I don't put anything past you. So for you to act like, well, I don't know why they would think that I would fight Candiace, because you're also best friends with the woman who assaulted her, sis. So for you to act like you're just so confused as to why people would think that, I mean, again, Portia, please stop. Cut this dumb blonde act. We're tired. Now we cut to Candiace, Leah, and Whitney talking, and Candiace is prepping them both on Giselle. She's like, don't trust her. All Giselle's gonna do is lie and tell your business. And I said, Candiace, please tell the truth, because that's exactly what Miss Giselle Bryant is going to do. And now Candiace switches gears and she's asking Whitney how she and Heather are doing. And Whitney says, look, we had a rough season. It's a bit hard because I feel like Heather gives Jen all this loyalty, and I don't get the same thing even though we're cousins. So here's where we get some drama. As they're all preparing for lunch, we see Portia, Giselle, and Heather talking, and they bring up Leah. So Heather's like, I want to see Leah get drunk. Now, if you watch these last few seasons of New York, then you know that Leah has a drinking problem. So for Heather to say that, I was like, now Heather, you know that Leah is now sober, so why would you even say that you want to see her drunk? So Portia even points out that Leah no longer drinks, and Heather says, yeah, I know, but that's the point, to see if we could get her drunk. And I was like, again, Heather, are you well? Because why would you try to get somebody who quit drinking to start back up again? And that's my thing with Heather. Heather tries to act very holier than thou. I guess you could say sanctimonious. She's very fraudulent in how she moves, very two-faced, saying one thing yet doing another. It's very much, you never know what to expect from her. Heather's very mixed up. I just feel like if Heather would go to therapy and get some help and get her childhood trauma from not being the cool girl, if she could get that sorted out, she would be great. But I just felt like, Heather, you pride yourself on being this great person and this great friend, so why would you even try to get somebody who's struggling with their sobriety to start drinking again? What kind of friend is that? So of course, Leah comes down to join them, and Giselle's asking Leah if Leah could bend the rules and drink this week. And Leah says, no, I can't, because if I start drinking, it could literally ruin my life. So in true Giselle fashion, she throws Heather under the bus, and she's like, well, Heather's trying to get you drunk. Heather's pissed, and I said, now Heather, that's your own fault. And if you watch Potomac, then you know how Giselle is. So Leah is pissed, rightfully so, and she says, really, Heather? You want me to relapse for your own entertainment? Are you serious? So at this point, all the ladies come down and have lunch, and as they're talking, Giselle's asking Portia, what are some things that she's learned since being on the show for the longest? So Portia says that her first year joining the show, it was so weird going from an unknown to now she's famous. Then she says that her second year of Housewives, it was weird because she was now divorced. Remember that whole mess with her and Cordell? And then she says that she had more followers at one point than she did Money in the Bank. So she realized that she had to brand herself and make a coin. Then Portia continues to say that she's grateful for the show and all that it's done for her, and she says that she'll never drag Housewives. Now, one thing I will say is that's really good to hear. I think that it's so dumb when housewives are fired or they quit and they have negative things to say. Why would you ever bite the hand that fed you for so many years? For a lot of these women, they came on this platform broke, pretending like they were rich, and this show allowed them to actually become rich and have a huge platform and reach millions of people and start businesses and become brands. So to see them turn their nose up at the show that created them, so to speak, it's really weird. You look bitter when you do that. And I just want to know, why does Giselle feel like she has to be the interrogator in this group? Because she started asking Leah about New York. She's like, oh, so have you heard anything about your show? And Leah says, no, we're still on hiatus. I don't even know if we're coming back. And I said, yeah, the word on the street, I don't think that New York is coming back in any capacity. Remember how we were getting a reboot with a whole new cast? That's on pause, and so is the Legacy cast. And Leah wasn't even slated to be on the Legacy cast because, again, she's not an OG. So, yeah, if New York does come back, Leah won't be back. And now Giselle's determined to stir the pot even more, and she brings up Whitney and Heather's relationship. She's like, you guys seem pretty good right now, so what's the deal? Are you guys fighting or not? So, of course, that opens up a whole can of worms. Heather and Whitney start going at it, and I said, Giselle, can't you just enjoy the lunch? Why do you even have to bring up their issues? But Whitney and Heather go at it about how Heather shows up for Jen Shah, but not Whitney. And Heather's like, I have completely shown up for you. I've always been there for you. And for the most part, this conversation went nowhere because even Giselle was like, okay, let's table this argument for another day because we just got here. But I said, Giselle, it's your fault. If you hadn't brought this up in the first place, they wouldn't have been arguing. Now we get to the end of episode 1. They're at dinner. And once again, Giselle was so ignorant because Marisol and Alexia were sitting next to each other. And they're speaking Spanish, and Giselle says, no Spanish. And I said, Giselle, stop. They have a right to speak Spanish if they want to. They weren't even talking about you. And I know Giselle shared the story of the reason why she's so triggered at them speaking Spanish is because her daughters all know Spanish, and they'll speak it in the house, and they'll talk about her, and she has no idea what they're saying. I said, now, if you're so pressed, why don't you get on Duolingo, sis, and learn some Spanish yourself? Or get Rosetta Stone, something. But don't sit up here and complain because you don't understand the language. Either learn it yourself or shut up. But don't tell people don't speak their language. Now, Marisol, I think you might need to go to the hospital because this whole entire time so far, you've had this stomach ache. I'm like, is it appendicitis? The paramedic in the second episode said that you might have an ulcer. But you obviously have something because the whole entire time you didn't eat anything. You were laid up in the bed because your stomach hurt. I said, girl. But also, Marisol, if your stomach hurts so bad, then why are you drinking vodka every minute of the day? That's the last thing that you need. Get some ginger ale and some saltine crackers. But I don't know why you're drinking a screwdriver, a mimosa, mixing up some tequila and pineapple. I'm like, girl, Adriana in that letter at that reunion was right. I think you really might have a problem because, sis, you have this stomach ache, but yet you're still drinking? So Giselle orchestrates another game, and she's like, let's all go around the table, and we share our best impression of one another and our worst impression. So Giselle goes first. She says that when it comes to Leah, her first impression of Leah was that Leah was cool. They met a few months ago on Project Runway. She said that Leah was really cool and chill, and she also likes how direct Leah is. But she also points out how ruffled Leah seemed to be when she first got there. So now Giselle gives her best and worst impression of Heather, and she says now, when the world found out that we were all going to be on this trip together, me and Heather had a FaceTime, and we had a cute kiki about it. She was like, oh, I thought Heather was so cool, and while I felt like you were direct on our FaceTime call, you weren't that way with Leah. So I'm like, here we go. Of course, Leah jumps in. She checks Heather. She's like, Heather, I'm really surprised at you because when we first got here, you gave me a hug and told me how proud you were of me that I'm sober. So to hear you say that you want to get me drunk, I'm really confused. Now, let's be real. Heather has a hard time dealing with confrontation on her franchise. Heather will talk out two sides of her face, and when she's caught, she'll try to lie about it, or she'll just say, look, I'm sorry. Heather's strange. So of course Heather feels ganged up on. She's not saying anything. And then Portia points out that Heather's a fan. I was like, ooh, the shade of it all. So at this point, Leah says, Heather, let's just hug it out. Let's move past this. Let's try again tomorrow. And now it's Leah's turn to give her impression of somebody. And she says, me and Heather got off to a rough start, but I have to say the person who I had the worst impression of was Portia. I thought that Portia was going to be a big bitch. So now Portia's like, what? Me? And she's like, guys, I am not a bitch. I'm actually very nice. And I said, Portia, stop. Please don't tell these lies. We saw the true Portia in those 7 episodes of that really sorry and raggedy spinoff. So Candiace says that the person that she had the worst impression of was Heather. She thought that Heather was going to be dry and boring, but Heather's actually fun. Then we see Marisol give her best and worst impression, and she says that she was a bit irked by Giselle telling her and Alexia to stop speaking Spanish. So, of course, Giselle tells a whole story about how her daughters make her feel a type of way because they speak Spanish at home and she feels left out. Like I said, if you're that bothered by it, Giselle, get on Duolingo and learn some Spanish yourself. But you have no right to tell people to not speak in their language. How dare you? So Giselle does apologize to both Alexia and Marisol. And now Alexia jumps in and she points out how Giselle asks a lot of questions, but doesn't want to talk about her own life. So Alexia's like, yeah, on our franchise, we don't do that. We get right into things. So now Giselle's like, well, that's funny that you say that because the women on my franchise accuse me of deflecting and not talking about my life when all you have to do is ask me a question. Giselle, for 7 seasons, you have yet to share anything about your real life. So miss me with all that, well, all you have to do is ask me a question. That's not true, because when people do ask you what's going on, you ignore them, you say it's none of their business, or you flip the conversation to focus on somebody else. So again, miss me with all that, well, I do talk about my life, I do share it. No, you don't. We didn't even know that you had a sister until this last reunion. So here goes Giselle shading Candiace, and she says that she doesn't cry about things the way Candiace does. And I loved how Candiace got her together. She said, the reason why Giselle is so guarded is because of how life has whooped her ass. And I said, truer words have never been spoken, because Giselle is a very bitter woman. She can't believe that her life did not turn out the way she thought it would. So of course it's Whitney's turn, and she addresses Candiace. She says that she didn't think that she would like her. And Candiace says, what? Why? And Whitney says, well, I misjudged you. So here goes Whitney stuttering. I say, speak up now, girl. You have all this mouth on your franchise. You have all that mouth in your confessional about Candiace. So speak up. We want to hear it. And here's where I almost turned the TV off because I was so pissed. When Whitney said, well, I felt like you were being really mean to Ashley after she had just given birth. I said, Whitney, have you been watching Potomac since the beginning? Ashley has said and done some of the most nastiest things to people. I do not understand why people are so blinded by Ashley Darby. It makes no sense. We don't have to go down the list of all the things that Ashley Darby has done. You guys already know. But I was like, Whitney, please, just stop. I do not and will not ever understand the capes for Ashley Darby. I don't get it. That woman is no victim. I was in total agreement when Candiace said, being a mom does not give you a pass to be a shitty person. I said, thank you. Then Candiace continues on by saying that Ashley weaponized that, the fact that Candiace isn't a natural mom, she's a bonus mom. And she's like, it wasn't fair, it wasn't right. I stand 10 toes down in what I said, and I would say it again. So you have Whitney with her cape on for Ashley Darby, and Candiace says, okay, sis, but that's not what happened, but go on and finish. So Candiace says, again, what I said to Ashley during that time, I meant every word, and I was saying it to be mean. So of course, here goes Portia talking about, well, you just shitty then. I said, again, baby, sit this conversation out. You tried to hurt your baby father's mother on national TV. So you better not ever say anything about somebody being a shitty person. I was so irritated with the end of episode 1 because, Whitney, all the mess that you start on your franchise, you're always throwing rocks and hiding your hand, twisting people's words up, lying on people, but yet you want to say that you didn't like what Candiace did to Ashley Darby? And it makes sense why she would stick up for Ashley Darby, because Whitney is the Ashley Darby of her franchise. So again, I wasn't too surprised to hear that. But now we jump into episode 2, and it's the next morning. All the ladies are relaxing, getting some breakfast. So for today's itinerary, they're going to be going to see the elephants, and for the evening, Candiace has a nice dinner planned along with the Lady Boy show. So she's telling them at breakfast, like, ladies, I want all of you guys to go all out with your outfits tonight. I want to see you guys show up and show out. Now, again, Candiace, you're talking to Giselle, and Giselle can't dress, so don't expect too much from her. Now, when Portia came down to join them for breakfast, it was a bit icy between her and Candiace, but they were still cordial. But Candiace says in her confessional that when everything went down in season 5 of Potomac, she wasn't surprised that Portia sided with Miss Samuels. Because, again, birds of a feather flock together, and they are both two violent individuals. But again, I digress. But Candiace points out that Portia clearly has a problem with her, and she's not the type to have an issue with somebody that she doesn't even know. I said, I know that's right. Don't let Portia Williams and her pea brain steal your joy or your peace, okay? Because I know I wouldn't. Now, this entire scene with them feeding the elephants was too much. It was so cute. They were feeding them the sugar cane. You see the baby elephants, like adorable. And may I tell you, I've always had a little soft spot for elephants. I don't know if you remember that cartoon, Babar, on HBO Kids, but that was like one of my favorite cartoons growing up. It was so cute. I thought it was so cute when they gave the elephants a mud bath. And then when Portia threw the mud on Giselle, I was like, girl. And Giselle was so shook. She was like, who did that? And I said, Portia, why would you do that to your friend? Candiace wanted no parts. She was not trying to bathe the elephants. She wasn't trying to touch them. She was like, back up, give me 50 feet, please. I don't want to be trampled. I don't want anything to happen to me. Now, personally, I wouldn't have wanted to get in that water and bathe the elephants. I probably would have just sat that out. And also, I would have had to go back to the villa and take a good shower before I sat down to have lunch. Because I would have been a bit grossed out. I know they had to be smelling a bit interesting after that whole experience in the water with the elephants. But again, I don't want to gross myself out or you out, so let's just move on. So the ladies sit down for lunch, and here's where I want to call a lot of these women out, especially Leah and Giselle. But Candiace says that it's an honor being on the second Black franchise. And then she says that the only hard part about it is social media because the folks come for her. And that's very true. So here goes Giselle jumping in, and she's like, now Candiace, stop it, because you bring that on yourself. You started. Don't blame the trolls, blame yourself. Giselle is so determined to be against Candiace in any way, it's sad. She has the right to give her opinion about what she's seeing play out in real time with the rest of us. If she wants to make a joke about her castmates, she has every right. The same way these other women get on their podcasts or YouTube channels or whatever platforms they have to talk about her, she has every right to say what she wants to say about whoever or whatever. And she does get a lot of unnecessary hate from viewers of the show for whatever reason who just don't like her. And if somebody does come for her, she has every right to defend herself and clap back. So Heather says that the show has done so much for her. It's given her a chance to thrive because prior to the show, she felt hopeless. She felt like she was nobody, and she felt like she had lost all hope. Now, I was a bit confused to hear that because prior to the show, she had started Beauty Lab like 2 or 3 years beforehand. And Beauty Lab was an instant success. So I was surprised to hear that she felt so hopeless prior to the show. Again, I feel like Heather will say anything for sympathy, so I don't always trust what she's saying. But I'm glad to hear that the show has really boosted her spirits and has given her a sense of purpose. So now it's Alexia's turn, and she says that she's grateful for the show, and then she brings up how Miami was on hiatus for 8 years. So she says, well, we're back now, so let's toast to that. Now, I didn't see anything wrong with that, and while Alexia is a bit self-centered, I understood why she said let's toast to that because she thought that her show was dead in the water. I mean, it was off air for 8 years and the fans brought it back. That's a big feat. That is something to celebrate. So I understand why she was so happy about that. But I do agree with Leah that Alexia does know how to suck all the air out the room and make it all about herself because if you watch Miami, then you know that Alexia is quite self-absorbed. So Whitney credits the show to her personal development. I said, oh, really? So what were you like before? Because on the show, you take no accountability or ownership for what you do, Whitney. So for you to say that you've grown so much, I'm like, well, girl, you have some more growing to do because you haven't grown enough, in my opinion. This might sound a bit callous, but I thought that Portia wasn't being sincere in this moment. I thought that she was trying to appear vulnerable when she said, well, the best part about having a sisterhood is knowing someone else's story. So she discusses how she had postpartum depression after she gave birth and how she was reluctant to film the next season, but one of the producers convinced her to film, and they said, just share your story. And so Portia starts crying, but I didn't see any tears coming down. So I was like, okay, it just felt very fake to me. I personally feel like Portia's doing her best to do damage control after that flop of a spinoff. Now, Marisol, I have to say, I was really surprised that you opened up so much because you answered some questions that I was dying to know. Marisol admits that she was hesitant to join the show and how she was afraid of people roasting her mom. And if you're an OG Miami watcher, then you remember Mama Elsa, okay? Mama Elsa was larger than life. She had a very vibrant personality. Marisol continues on by saying that her mom had a gorgeous face, but she ruined it because of fillers. And because of that, she was deathly afraid of people clowning her mom's looks. And again, I was very surprised that Marisol shared that because for years, a lot of fans wanted to know what had happened to her mom's face because it was clear that she had either gotten a bad facelift or fillers. It was something, but Marisol never talked about it. So when she actually revealed what happened to her mom, I was like, wow. But again, Mama Elsa is a legend. I think that Mama Elsa is and was more iconic than her daughter. Now, Leah, here's where I have to get you together. Because I feel like you're trying to play on everybody's intelligence. And I'm also getting tired of all your antics and your desperate need for attention. Leah shares that she was hesitant to go on this trip because last season of New York was so hard for her. Now, Leah, New York hasn't been on air for the past 2 years. So the fact that you're still dwelling on the last season, I'm like, baby, you've had enough time to process it and move on. And if we're being honest, the last season of New York was so bad that nobody was even watching it. So Leah shares that during the last season of New York, her grandma had passed away and the producers would not allow her to see her grandma. So they're all staring at Leah like, wait, what? There's no way in hell that producers could force me to film a show while my grandmother is on her deathbed. Like, that's not happening. Even Giselle is like, this story is BS. Leah, take responsibility and never blame production for what you do. Even Whitney's confused. She's like, that doesn't make any sense because we share the same production company and production would never tell you that you can't see your sick loved one. Like, that's a lie. Again, I don't believe that for a minute. We've seen multiple housewives deal with family members' deaths and they were able to be with their loved ones. So again, Leah, I'm not buying it. And also, Leah, you weren't being truthful because I watched that season and I remember you guys were at Ramona's house in the Hamptons and you had told Ramona and Sonia and Luann and they all said, go be with your family. So for you to lie and say that production and your cast members didn't encourage you to see your grandma before she passed, that's not true. Because I clearly remember Ramona and Sonia and Luann and Ebony all saying, go be with your family. And also, Leah, let's just be real for a minute, right? I don't care if you're a content creator, a reality star, an athlete, if you work a 9 to 5. There is no way in hell that somebody could tell me that I cannot see my dying loved one. That's not happening. So for Leah to blame production, absolutely not. So Leah's emotional. She goes on to say that it was hard because the whole audience was dragging her. And now Candiace gives her a big hug. So Giselle says that it's tough because people don't look at us like we're human beings. They look at us as like we're there to entertain them. And they just rip us apart. And I said, Giselle, while that is true about when you put yourself out there on a public platform, people don't view you as human beings, unfortunately. In your case, people pick you apart because you say and do vile things. And you lie on people. That's why we pick you apart. Now, when they were on their way back to the villa, I got emotional hearing about Candiace and Chris. We learned that Candiace and Chris have been having some marital issues, and they had a huge fight that resulted into them saying the D word. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I said, Candiace, please work it out. You and Chris have only been married for like, what, 3 years? I was like, please don't tell me that this show is about to come in between them. But Candiace says that it's the fact that they're always working. They don't spend any time with each other. They haven't seen each other in months. And I said, Candiace, you guys have to change that. I was like, girl, you guys have to find some time to spend with each other, because I will be so upset to hear that you guys end up splitting because your schedules are too crazy. And we see in the other Sprinter van, Whitney, Marisol, I think Portia and Giselle were all talking, and Whitney brought up fertility. So she's asking Marisol if Marisol ever wanted to have children. We learned that Marisol actually did want to have children, but in her 30s, she said that she found out that she had like a birth defect in her uterus and she couldn't have children. So she says, look, what could I do about it? I couldn't focus on it or else I'd be sad. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to live my life and be happy anyway. And I have to say, Marisol, this is what I want to see from you when you're on Miami. I don't like how shallow and how rude Marisol is. Her always talking about alcohol all the time. That's not real life. And to see Marisol actually be real, it's refreshing. But I have to say, I was surprised to hear this because I always assumed that Marisol didn't want kids. So when I found this out, I was like, oh, okay, you learn something new every day. Now they get back to the house. They're all going to shower, get ready for the dinner. Remember that it's Candiace's night. She's having a really fun dinner with the lady boys. So as they're getting ready, Portia is asking Pepsi to get her some KFC. She's like, Pepsi, I want a 5-piece with some mashed potatoes and gravy, some mac and cheese. I said, girl, you guys just ate. You're about to be going to dinner, and now you want KFC? Now, my mouth was watering, but I have to say that KFC has not been the same since they took away my favorite, the potato wedges. Those wedges were everything and then some. If somebody who works in corporate at KFC is watching this video, please talk to the CEO and bring the wedges back, please. Because those were the best things on the menu. And if the wedges come back, I want a 10% cut.
Bling, bling, bling. Bitches is mad.
And I want everybody to reference this video and say that the Brooke Ashley got the wedges back on the menu. So all the ladies are dressed and ready for dinner, and now they all get to the restaurant. But before they go in, Candiace wants to give them all some fun nicknames for the night. So Candiace says that her name is Petty LaBelle. So of course Giselle has to be a hater, and she's like, Petty LaBelle? That's not the name that I would have given her. I would have given her Crybaby Candiace or Mama Drama Candiace. And I said, Giselle, all the nicknames that I have for you, again, sit there and just eat your food, please. And Giselle thinks that she's so petty. I wouldn't say that she's petty. I think that Giselle is just mean. So Candiace's nickname for Giselle is She Need a Man. And Giselle's upset about that. And I said, now Giselle, for somebody who always pokes fun at others, why can't you poke fun at yourself? Again, I think it's so funny how Giselle can dish it out, but she can't take it. She's always making jokes at other people's expense, but yeah, when somebody jokes on her, it's a problem. So Heather and Whitney's nicknames are Snow Right and Snow Wrong. I think Alexia's nickname was Havana White. Marisol's nickname was Crystal Ball in honor of her mom. Leah's nickname was Judaism, because remember in the last season, Leah converted to Judaism, and so it's time for Portia's nickname, and Portia was not happy about her name. I said, again, sis, you did not do right when it comes to this whole situation of you getting with Simon, and you know it. So poke fun at yourself, take the name in stride, and get over it. But Portia's nickname is Should Take a Man, like she takes a man. So already Portia's in her feelings. She's like, I'm really underwhelmed right now. That wasn't even funny. And by the way, he was a free man. So they all get to the table and already Giselle is in a pissy mood. And she's like, last night's game was better. And Alexia says, well, Giselle, that wasn't a game. That was a naming ceremony. So Candiace starts off the conversation and she wants to know from all the ladies, has the show affected their relationship for better or for worse? Because her and Chris are going through a rough patch. So Giselle says, well, there's no way that the show doesn't affect a marriage because of all the public scrutiny. A man can't get away with doing a little dirt on the side because it will be exposed. And I said, yeah, Giselle, you would know that firsthand. So now you have Portia, who is obviously angry about her nickname. And she's like, Candiace, I want to ask you something. Why did you give me a nickname based on the rumors? So Candiace says, I mean, girl, it was all over the blogs. Street said that you stole somebody's man and that's how it looked. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And here goes Portia lying. I said, Portia, at this rate, what's the point in lying? You guys are married now. You seem happy. Your plan worked out. So just own what you did. But Portia says, well, here's the deal. Production told me that they were bringing on a new wife. That's when I met him at their house, but I had known him prior. So if you just met him, then how'd you know him prior? Like, again, it's stuff like that. It's like, Portia, are you smart? But this is the same woman who said 265 days a year. So I really can't expect much more. But she says that things didn't work out between Simon and Fallon. And she slid in his DM saying, oh, I'm praying for you. I feel sorry for you. I said, girl, no, you didn't. I'm not even going to finish with this dumb story that Portia was trying to sell us. It was just so dumb. And I was laughing the entire time. Like, Portia really thinks that we're stupid. But Portia does express how sad she was that her fans were let down by what happened. But she goes on to say that it's all fine, though, because the truth always prevails. And I said, you're right. The truth does prevail. But you're not telling it. You're still lying. And Heather, you sounded so desperate and like the ultimate pick-me when you said, I mean, who cares? I'd steal a man, finding a man who likes you back. I was like, Heather, are you all right? Do you think that low of yourself that you think that you can't find somebody to like you back? Because if so, that is extremely telling. I was like, Heather's self-esteem is on the floor. Girl, pick it up. So since we're on the topic of husbands and stealing husbands, Giselle interrupts and she's like, wait, hold on. Alexia, aren't you the one who had a gay husband, or did I hear that wrong? So Alexia says, no, you're not wrong. And she goes into the whole story about her second husband, Herman. So as Alexia is telling the whole story about Herman, you have Leah off to the side and she's like, oh my gosh, again? It seems like Alexia's on a loop. She only talks about the same few topics and one of them is Herman, and who wants to hear about this? It's boring. And I said, now Leah, you're not that interesting. You weren't that interesting when you were on the show. If you're that bored by the conversation, excuse yourself, go for a cigarette break, take a walk. But to sit there and say, I'm bored, how old are you, 5? So Alexia's annoyed and she's like, Leah, if I'm so boring to you, then let's change the topic then. Let's talk about micro penises like you were talking about earlier. And even Marisol was like, yeah, Alexia, she's over here saying how boring you are. And now Leah gets mad. She's like, well, Marisol, just because your stomach hurts, don't take it out on me. And it's like, Leah, if you want to be all big and bold, talking about she's boring under your breath, then you can't get upset when people call you out about it. Personally, I don't think that they should have had Leah on here. They should have brought Sonia. Anybody else but Leah. I don't think that Leah is that girl in any capacity. She definitely wasn't that girl when she was on New York. So we open up episode 3 with them still at dinner. So you have Giselle addressing Leah, and for once, Giselle's actually right. She's like, Leah, you can't do that. And also, it's not fair to me because I hadn't heard Alexia's story, so I wanted to hear it. So now she's like, since you want the floor so bad and you want the attention, what do you want to talk about? And here goes Leah being childish, and she's like, well, I don't know what to talk about. But Leah, you made this big to-do about how Alexia's boring you, and now it's your turn to have the floor and you don't want it anymore? Again, I don't think that Leah should have been on Ultimate Girls Trip, especially not with this cast. I think that Leah wants the attention on her, but she doesn't want the attention on her. It's weird. Like I stated before, I never thought that Leah was Real Housewife material in the first place. At this point, everybody's irritated with Leah. Portia's like, Leah, if you don't want to get to know anybody here, then you can just leave. So at this point, Leah and Candiace go off to the restroom. I thought it was sweet that Candiace was encouraging Leah, like, Leah, stop apologizing, stop harping on this, let's just move on and have a good time. I think that Candiace might see a little bit of herself in Leah in a way. I think that since Candiace feels like the underdog or the punching bag on her franchise, she doesn't want to see somebody else be ganged up on. So now we see the other ladies still at the table. Giselle's complaining about the dinner. She's like, is this it? Because if so, this dinner has been very underwhelming. I said, again, Giselle, if you could sit through your best friend Robin's family fun day, you'll be okay. But I loved when Candiace went to see the lady boys. They were all dressed. They looked amazing. And when I tell you, when they all came out and started dancing, they put on a show. And when Candiace came out, she had a whole outfit change. And here goes Giselle and Portia trying to shade Candiace on her outfit. They were like, she looked like a loofah. It was like, girl, it's a costume. She's a performer. But overall, the performance is really cute. Everybody enjoyed themselves. And I said, come through, Candiace. Miss Candiace Dillard Bassett is international now, honey, performing in Thailand. And I don't care what anybody says. You cannot convince me or tell me any differently. Giselle is miserable and jealous. Because did you catch that shade in the confessional? When she said, I try to support Candiace, even if she is performing to 17 people. Like, why can't you just say, congratulations, great job? Whatever happened to that? Now, when they got in the Sprinter van to go back to the villa, you have Portia saying that that was the longest dinner of her life. And Giselle, I want you to give Candiace a public apology because you said what we've been saying for the past 2 years, that Candiace is not the initiator, she is the responder when it comes to conflict. The fact that you have been gaslighting Candiace about her mouth and her attitude, but yet out of your own mouth, you even admitted that Candiace is the responder. I was like, wow, the truth comes out. And then Giselle says, but tonight she was the initiator. First of all, the fact that you guys are that butthurt about these silly nicknames is silly. I'm sorry. Because you guys have said and heard a lot worse. So for you to act like that was the worst thing that you've ever heard, please stop. Portia, did you truly believe that your whole mess with Simon wouldn't be brought up? Let's get real for a minute. But now it's the next morning and they're all getting ready for the day. And for today's agenda, Alexia is going to be hosting a yacht day. Now, we know how housewives are on yachts. It's some fun, but then it's always some arguing and fights breaking out. So they don't have the best track record. But everybody's getting ready. And when I tell you, Candiace's body is snatched, I said, come through. So we see Giselle and Whitney talking. They're talking about the dinner. And so they both say that Leah was being really rude. And Giselle's like, look, if Leah doesn't want to be here, then she can leave. Now, we do know that Leah does leave halfway into the trip because it was too much for her.
Oh! Shout out to everybody. I had fun.
I gotta be good.
But the ladies arrive at the marina, and the yacht was really pretty. They're greeted with welcome mojitos, and I said, yeah, I'm not surprised that Alexia pulled out all the stops for this yacht day, because Alexia knows how to do it, because in Miami, that's a franchise with some real money. Now, Candiace had all the ladies shook with her hat. She had that big sun hat that like blocks everybody, and they were all low-key hating. They were like, can you take that hat off, please? We can't see anybody. And I said, why are y'all so pressed about her hat? And it's so funny because I have a hat that's almost as big as Candiace's, and I remember wearing that when I was in Arizona. And I mean, honey, that hat is everything. It's all dramatic. I love a good dramatic hat. But I was here for it. I said, come through, Candiace. I swear to you, they weren't on this yacht for more than 20 minutes, and they already started going at it. Leah's like, I know I'm not the most popular person right now, but I expressed that I had hesitation about even coming on this trip. And I said, Leah, now is not the time to get into this. Just enjoy the sun. Enjoy your time on the yacht. Why bring up any drama? It's like Leah can't help herself. She's determined to bring the mood down. So Leah says that she thought it was shady for the ladies to bring up something that she was vulnerable about. And Portia says, wait, I thought that you wanted to go home because you've been acting like you want to leave. So of course Giselle jumps in and she says, yeah, you were talking about how bored you were all throughout dinner last night. And then when you said to us, why don't you guys get drunk or something, then you'll be more fun, you want to act like we're your drunk monkeys? Like, girl, that's not how this works. So Leah's upset, and you can already tell that this conversation is about to take a hard left. So now Leah calls out Marisol, and she says, Marisol, the fact that you told me last night that you wish that I could drink. And so Marisol says, Leah, I didn't say that. I applauded you for taking your sobriety seriously because I wish I could do that. That's all I said. So Portia calls Leah a victim. And I'm thinking in my head, you guys just sat down. How are you guys already at each other's throats? And I was confused. I was like, again, how do we get here? So while defending Leah, Candiace gets emotional. She starts crying. And she says that she didn't want to come on this trip either because she gets anxiety being in new places with new people. And now they all gather around to comfort her. And here you have Portia making things worse. And she says, but I'm confused because you claim to have anxiety, but yet you hosted the shadiest dinner last night. Make it make sense. I wanted to scream at this point. I said, Portia, you were on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. You went toe-to-toe with Kenya Moore and Nene Leakes. Kenya read you for filth many times. If you could get through that, you can survive Candiace's shady nickname for you at a dinner. You will be okay. Why are you acting like she cursed you out and stole your money? And the fact that you're still mad about that nickname shows right there that you know in your heart that how you got with Simon was crazy. So Candiace brushes her off. She's like, look, Portia, it was a game. I was just having fun. It wasn't that deep. So Portia's like, so that's how you have fun? By making people feel uncomfortable? I was like, again, Portia, shut up. So Candiace says, Portia, I'm sorry, okay? So here goes Portia saying, no, you're not. You're just saying that. I loved when Alexia said, well, I love the game, Candiace. I had a good old time. So at this point, Portia and Candiace are screaming at each other. And now Candiace says, look, all I'm trying to say is that Leah should not be demonized for stating her opinion and putting her foot in her mouth, okay? Like, let's just drop it. Now, Heather, I was extremely confused when you revealed that you have plenty of friends who are alcoholics, but you funnel them drinks because they ask you to. And Leah and Candiace were like, pardon me, what? And you were like, I mean, yeah, when I'm your friend to the end, and whatever you want, I'll do. And Candiace said, so you'll support somebody even to their own detriment? And you were like, yeah, I guess. Again, Heather, please seek some help because something's not right. Heather really acts like she's going to fall apart if somebody's upset with her, doesn't like her. I mean, that's crazy to me, to have your whole life controlled by people liking you. Now, I loved how they did a Cuban-themed lunch. They had Cuban sandwiches, all the Cuban foods that Alexia and Marisol eat. My mouth was watering. It looked really good. And I thought it was so cute because they had a really fun game plan too. Alexia gave everybody a fan with Cuban sayings. Candiace's fan said, arroz con mango, which meant a big mess. And then I think Giselle's fan said a tiki tiki, a taka taka, and that means a gossip. And Candiace was like, yup, that's Giselle right there. She does a lot of tiki tiki and taka taka. Again, I was like, let me find out that Alexia and Marisol are about to win me over because I am liking them a whole lot on Ultimate Girls Trip. I really am. And we are fresh off of Miami, and if you've been watching my recaps, then you know how I feel about them. But I said I'm liking them a lot on here. I definitely feel like that happened to me with the first girls trip because in the first girls trip, I completely just fell in love with Kenya. Because if you know before, I thought that Kenya was so mean and so rude. And when I saw her in Ultimate Girls Trip, I was like, oh my gosh, I love Kenya. Where has this Kenya been hiding? She really won me over completely. I really like Teresa a lot on Ultimate Girls Trip. While she gets on my last nerves on her franchise, I did like her a lot on Girls Trip. But it's so funny because placing certain women in these environments, you can end up liking somebody who you can't stand when they're on their show, which is so funny. But I digress. So they finished playing the game, and now here goes Giselle trying to stir up more mess. And she's like, let's go back to the Heather and Whitney drama. And I wanted to say, Giselle, is everything okay? Why are you doing this? Why now? Heather and Whitney have been good for the most part. Why bring up what they're going through? I'll never understand Giselle's mindset. I understand that, yes, you guys are on a show and it has to be entertaining. But again, let it play out naturally. You don't have to force things to happen. Giselle tries way too hard to get drama off the ground. Just let it flow. So Whitney says, look, me and Heather are both equally responsible for the demise of our friendship. So Leah throws Whitney under the bus and she says, well, Whitney, that's funny because you had a lot to say about Heather the other day. You said, I don't know why Heather's writing a book when her name is still on the Mormon roll. So, of course, at this point, Heather is pissed. She's like, excuse me, are you serious right now? I said, Leah, that was so messy of you. That was something out of Giselle's playbook. Because what was the reason? Why would you bring that up? So Heather addresses Whitney. She says, now, why would you say that? Because how long have you been out of the Mormon church? 15 years. And when did you get your name removed off of the roll? 6 months ago. So how dare you judge me? Now, for all those who don't watch SLC, Heather has a memoir out called Bad Mormon, where she's talking about her upbringing, and she's also exposing the Mormon church. So for Whitney to point out Heather trying to bash the church, but still being on the roll, you see why Heather's so offended. So Heather goes on to say that she's horrified hearing that Whitney was talking about her and saying that. And then she says, look, I'm about to be alienated from my entire community. So Heather starts crying, and Giselle has the nerve to say, well, what's for lunch? And I said, Giselle, you started this whole thing by bringing up their relationship, and now you want to run away from all the hurt and pain that you've caused? There was no point in bringing this up. Why couldn't you guys have a nice time on the yacht? Now Heather's black eye comes up, and we're going to breeze right past this because if you watched this past season of SLC, then you know that this whole entire storyline was fraudulent. And Heather only played this up for attention. She hit her eye on the sink and then tried to pretend like one of the other ladies came in the middle of the night and punched her when no such thing happened. It was a waste of everybody's time. So to hear them bring this up again, I said, oh no, we're not doing this. I'm not talking about it. Let's just move right on along. But I thought it was funny that Giselle and Candiace were like, oh, Jen hit you, didn't she? And then Giselle said, well, I'm telling everybody that the criminal did it. So now it's time for their second lunch. They have crab, salmon, lamb chops. I mean, that spread was immaculate. I said, now that's how you do it. So while you have Alexia, Marisol eating, Giselle and Portia are talking to Whitney, and they want to see pictures of Heather's black eye. So Heather sees what's going on, and she says, Whitney, you are so full of it. And if you show Giselle and Portia the picture of my black eye, then it shows how thirsty you truly are. And I said, no, Heather, let's not, because you and your cousin are both thirsty. So to act like you guys aren't both trying to impress the OGs of the other franchises, again, let's not do that. So Marisol comes over to Whitney and she's like, look, Whitney, don't do it, okay? Things are bad between you and your cousin. Don't make it worse. Try to repair the relationship, but don't show the picture to anybody else. It'll only make things worse. And I agree with Marisol, because Whitney, it's nobody else's business. They'll see it play out on the show when it airs. But to show the picture, it looks desperate. It looks weird. It looks like you're doing too much. You're trying too hard. Giselle and Portia will be okay without seeing anything. So while that's going on, we see Candiace talking to Leah, and I think she was also talking to one of the Miami girls too, maybe? I don't know, but Candiace and Leah are talking, and Candiace says, on our franchise, Giselle loves to lie. So she tells Leah the whole story about Giselle pretty much accusing Chris of acting in an inappropriate manner. So Leah's like, wait, excuse me? She did what? She accused your husband of SA? Are you serious right now? So why would she come for me? So now Leah says, you know what? I'm gonna walk over to Giselle right now and talk to her about this. Candiace says, okay, like, be my guest. So child, Leah walks over to Giselle and she says, Giselle, can I talk to you for a minute? Now, mind you, everybody is around listening. So Giselle's like, yeah, sure, what's up? Leah says, now, why have you been on me all day, but meanwhile back at the ranch, you're out here accusing Candiace's husband of SA. So Giselle's like, well, that's a lie. Is that what she told you? So you already know that it's about to go left. Candiace walks in. Giselle's like, Leah told me what you said to her. And let's make this very clear, Candiace, because we've gone over this several times. I never said that Chris lured me into any dressing room, and I never said SA. Now, Giselle, we all watched season 7 with disgust, I might add. And all of us viewers can agree that your story about what happened changed several times. And you still have not been able to explain to us what Chris did to make you feel uncomfortable. So Candiace says, well, Giselle, you planted that mustard seed of doubt in people's minds on national TV about my husband. So when I tell you that Leah had me screaming, she said, I just find it funny that Neck wants to crucify me when she's out here accusing somebody's husband of SA. I said, child, the fact that Candiace Dillard Bassett has the whole world calling Giselle Neck. Cut her a check, please. Please. So Candiace starts going in on Giselle. She says, the only thing that I'm accusing you of is you being a lying ass bitch. So at this point, Alexia and Marisol are like, you know what? Let's just go on over to the other part of the yacht because this is a mess. We just want to have some fun. They get out some maracas. They were like, we don't want any parts of what they have going on. But the yacht ride is over, and I have to say that this had to be one of the worst yacht rides I have ever seen. I don't think that they had any fun. It was a whole bunch of arguing, yelling, crying. I said, you guys never had a chance to just have a few drinks, laugh. This is fun to you guys? A whole day ruined by bringing up a bunch of BS and drama for no reason. Just a waste. I know I would have been pissed if I were Alexia. Like, I planned a nice day for everybody and it was ruined. It is tiring watching them rehash old issues. Like, your season's wrapped up, guys. We don't want to keep hearing about this. But we end the third episode with the ladies back at the villa, And we see Leah and Candiace having a heart-to-heart. Candiace is comforting Leah. She's like, don't take it personally. Just relax, have a good time, and enjoy your time here. And then I was dying laughing because Heather was in bed reading Portia's book, and she's like, once upon a time, not long ago, I was a hoe. I was like, Heather is a mess. But y'all, that was my triple recap for the first 3 episodes of The Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip in Thailand. And I'm excited to see what's to come. I think that it's going to be a lot more drama with everybody because this is a very fiery group. And then you have messy Giselle and delusional Portia, who's living in an alternate universe. But guys, thank you all again for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all later. Bye.